Hesham, thank you so much for joining us here at Abu Dhabi Global Healthcare Week, the inaugural summit here in the UAE. When you think about all of the advances that we've been discussing, AI, technology, even in logistics trains, in your mind, is this going to propel us even closer to finding a cure for cancer?
Yeah, really happy to see the level of infrastructure, technology, knowledge, expertise. I'm impressed. So first and foremost, I think it's been great to be in this environment, in this ecosystem, which is starting to thrive as well too, and I think is probably going to play a really key part moving forward into the future of drug development, and more specifically, at least from my perspective, in oncology and precision medicine as well too. We've made a lot of great progress over the past 20 years. The progress that we've made is, started out with better understanding human genetics, genomics, but we're now focusing on a much broader kind of assessment of multiomics. So everything from proteomics to transcriptomics to immune profiling, looking at patients' immune system as well too, immune function as well. And then the technology plays a really key part as well too. So we're now developing more advanced technologies to help us better deliver more advanced medicines.
Yeah, and part of this, of course, is the broader narrative, which is that everything impacts your health.
It does. And if I had to say, one thing that we're really starting to do a better job at is it's really early diagnosis, early screening, right? So we've seen statistics that say earlier diagnosis, earlier screening leads to better longer-term outcomes. So you can absolutely try to prevent or diagnose early enough to treat. And if you diagnose early enough to treat and intervene, you're probably going to have better longer-term outcomes.
No doubt. Some of the things that we've been discussing here have been surrounding the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, what that taught us, the lessons to be taken, how to prepare potentially for another one, but also how do we take the things that have been learned and apply them holistically to health.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really great point. I say first and foremost, we were just talking about diagnosis and screening. That is at the top of the list in oncology and in certainly cancer screening as well too. The second I would probably think about is how quickly the world mobilized resource-wise, right? In terms of being able to say, we're putting all of our resources against this, whether it be manufacturing resources, whether it be scientific, diagnosing certain types of strains, variants, et cetera, right? And the ability to be able to, really focus on developing new medicines. In this instance, it was vaccines, right? And I think we've done a good job of that in oncology. And we've started really, if I may call it, like really bending the survival curves in a better direction, especially 5-year survival rates across certain tumor types, whether it be solid tumors or heme malignancies. But we haven't done enough. The statistics are telling us, at least in this region, that over the next 20 years, there will be a tripling of incidence of cancer. It is no longer a disease of the elderly either, right? We're seeing, at least over the past 10 years, a doubling in the incidence of cancer diagnoses in patients less than 50 years of age. So it's affecting everyone, right? And so there's something here about thinking through the innovation lens, but with what is kind of a collaboration dimension, right? I always say, of course, like innovation never happens in isolation, right? And so the ability to be able to bring, what are the biopharmaceutical sector and its resources, academic knowledge base and expertise, and then of course the infrastructure that the departments of health, the ministries of health, and the government bring is a really powerful, I'd probably say collaboration against cancer.
Yeah. So it's not about just creating an environment, frankly, where you can do these experiments, where you can really feel free to pursue all avenues of investigation when it comes to finding a cure and to preventative medicine, but also it's about profit. How do you encapsulate that? Because at the end of the day, these are companies that need to make a profit. They have shareholders. There's nothing wrong with running a business and running it profitably. How do you measure the success there in terms of profit versus success?
So to me, I think what's important is the impact. Are you addressing an unmet need for patients? Are you delivering the right treatment effect, especially in the age of precision oncology, where we see significant magnitudes of effect?
What about regulation? Because we're seeing the FDA even beginning to make a major shift, and that's all post-COVID-19.
Yeah.
In your mind, are regulators moving fast enough?
I think they are. And they have certainly for oncology as well too. We see here in the UAE, new medicines, especially that are of high impact, they get reviewed very quickly. right? And they run through the process. They get robust reviews, but they run through the process in a very expeditious fashion because of the impact or the potential impact that they could have on patients as well too. So I think, at least from a regulatory standpoint, are we making progress? Yes, we are globally. I would actually even argue that in certain instances, we're now starting to see maybe what could be what I would call like regulatory dissidence, right? But I think it's okay, right? We're trying to design global drug development programs. And at the same point in time, the key is just to make sure that we have these opportunities for expedited approval pathways, expedited drug development pathways, where, again, the benefit is substantive and tangible and impactful enough to patients in areas of unmet need.
Doing it in a more efficient way.
Correct. And at the same point in time, having the regulations that will enable us to progress as quickly as the data and the technology are making progress.
Tell me this, in R&D, historically I've had the answer that just not enough money is being put into R&D. Cancer obviously is a different kettle of fish, if you will. However, do you feel that there's still a shortfall?
I think there's, probably, again, I'm a research and development, guy. We have our finance, experts as well too. But I think there's certainly a good proportionate, I'd probably say, commitment to research and development in oncology across the biopharma sector, I would say, right? I think the key question is, again, how can we be more efficient? So if you ask me, what are we not doing well? Well, maybe across the board, across the entirety of the biopharma sector in oncology, is how we're able to maybe improve the probability of success for drugs, new medicines that we bring forward from research to early phase development. If we can solve that a little bit, I think it actually puts us in a much different place and really helps us make sure that from early on, phase 1, and this is the earliest phase of clinical trials, that we're actually increasing substantively how likely it is for that medicine to move to phase 2, move to phase 3,
yes,
or even reach patients as well. And there's a number of different ways that I think will be important to be able to improve that, whether it be one, being able to, again, like I said, access different diverse data sets. 2, something that we call reverse translation. So we generate data in clinical trials, but we're still not doing a good enough job of being able to take that clinical data, feeding it back into research to discover new targets, to discover new resistance mechanisms that we can discover new medicines against, developing better non-clinical model systems that actually replicate what happens in humans. And then in turn, that would give us more confidence in how likely we are to succeed in phase 1.
Yeah. In your mind, obviously we talked a lot about the innovation that is a huge part of the conversation here. But what are the things that we're not talking about in your mind?
Yeah. How we can create more collaborations across the biopharma sector, and what that could mean certainly across the field and the space as well too. I think there have been certain instances where we've been able to do that. For example, trying to benchmark certain diagnostics against a certain biomarker for a class of agents, right? But we haven't done that well enough. So there's probably more, at least from our end, to be able to do on that front. I think there's opportunities for us to think about areas where there's really clear high unmet need and be able to consider or evaluate if there's certain data that we can access where we can actually put additional resources towards to try to help solve certain problems together. So I think that's another area that we have to consider and evaluate. But again, probably if I think about this region, probably one of the things that's going to be most critical is continuing similar to what's happened here in Abu Dhabi, but more broadly, be able to better develop the infrastructure that helps research, clinical trials thrive even more.
Yeah, and one of the things obviously that led to that was the response to COVID-19,
exactly,
to the pandemic. Speaking of lessons learned from that experience, we touched on that briefly, but in your mind, are we prepared for the next one?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think first and foremost, technology has advanced. We've seen now how powerful and impactful mRNA technology for vaccines can be, and it's helped us think about vaccine development in a certainly a different context. So I would say, one, are we in a better place technologically to be prepared for the next pandemic? I think absolutely that's the case. The question is, do we have a good handle on what those pathogens that could come next are? I'm not so sure. But at the same point in time, we see trends, regional trends, country level trends, in terms of where we see some of these pathogens starting to emerge. And I think the question is for us to make sure that we continue to be vigilant, continue to be aware, and I think that's going to be important moving forward.
No doubt. Hesham, thank you so much for joining us here at Abu Dhabi Global Healthcare
Thank you
Week.
very much. Thank you.